The deep space research vessel UES Discovery drifted silently through the void between stars, its hull gleaming under the distant light of a red dwarf. Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge, watching the main screen with growing curiosity. 3 days ago, his ship had detected an unusual energy signature in this empty sector of space. What they found was something that should not have existed here. A massive alien structure floated before them, dark and ancient. It was roughly cylindrical, about 2 kilometers long, with strange markings covering its surface. The metal was unlike anything in human databases. Most importantly, it was completely dead. No power signatures, no life signs, nothing but cold metal and whatever secrets it held inside. Dr. Lisa Thompson made her way to the bridge, carrying a tablet filled with preliminary scans. She had been the lead xenoarchaeologist on 3 previous first contact missions, but none of those had prepared her for this discovery. The structure was old, far older than human civilization, perhaps older than human existence itself. "Captain, we need to get inside that thing," Lisa said, her voice filled with scientific excitement. "The composition alone is revolutionary, but the age readings are incredible. This could be from a civilization that existed millions of years ago." Jake nodded slowly. His orders from Earth Command were clear: investigate any alien artifacts and report findings immediately. However, something about this structure made him hesitate. There was an ominous quality to it, like a tomb floating in space. Still, humanity's future depended on understanding what lay beyond their small corner of the galaxy. "Prepare a boarding party," Jake ordered. "Full environmental suits and recording equipment. I want everything documented." The airlock cycled open 3 hours later, and the boarding team stepped into the alien structure. Emergency lighting flickered on automatically as they entered, revealing corridors that seemed designed for beings roughly human-sized. The walls were covered in symbols and writing that hurt to look at directly, as if the alien language was somehow wrong for human eyes to process. Lisa led the team deeper into the structure, her scanner beeping constantly as it recorded everything. The corridors branched and twisted, leading them toward what appeared to be a central chamber. As they walked, she noticed that the walls were not just decorated with writing, they were covered in it. Thousands upon thousands of symbols, as if the entire structure was one massive library. The central chamber was enormous, with a domed ceiling that stretched high above them. In the center stood a device that looked like a cross between an altar and a computer terminal. Crystalline structures jutted out from its surface, each one glowing faintly with internal light. The moment Lisa approached it, the crystals began to pulse brighter. "It's responding to our presence," she whispered into her radio. "Captain, I think this is some sort of data storage system. It might contain the entire knowledge base of whoever built this place." Jake's voice crackled through the comm system. "Can you access it safely?" Lisa ran her scanner over the device, checking for any dangerous energy emissions. Everything seemed stable, almost as if the system was designed to be activated by visitors. She placed her gloved hand on what appeared to be a control surface, and immediately the chamber filled with light. Holographic displays materialized around them, showing star maps, alien faces, and streams of data that moved too fast for human eyes to follow. But then something strange happened. The system began to slow down, as if it was adapting to their presence. The alien writing started to change, morphing into symbols that seemed almost familiar. "It's learning our language," Lisa said in amazement. "It's scanning our equipment, our communication signals, everything. This technology is incredible." The first translation came through after 10 minutes of processing. A single word appeared in the air before them, written in perfectly clear English: "Warning." More words followed rapidly. The system was translating its vast databases, converting millions of years of accumulated knowledge into human language. Lisa and her team watched in fascination as the first complete message appeared. "We are the keepers of knowledge, guardians of wisdom, watchers of the galaxy. To those who find this archive, know that we have observed your species for many cycles of your star. We have watched you grow, fight, die, and grow again. We have studied your wars, your peace, your capacity for both creation and destruction." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. The message was addressing humanity directly, but that was impossible. Humans had only been in space for a few decades, and had never traveled beyond their own solar system until very recently. The translation continued, and what it revealed made the entire team fall silent. Species designation: human. Planet of origin, third planet, Sol system. Classification, extreme threat level. Recommendation, avoid all contact. Do not engage under any circumstances. Jake's voice came through the radio, sharp with concern. Lisa, what are you seeing down there? Your biometrics are spiking. Lisa could barely speak. The holographic display was showing detailed information about Earth, about human history, about wars that had happened thousands of years ago. The Keepers had been watching humanity from its earliest days, documenting everything. Captain, you need to see this. They've been studying us for millennia. They have records of every major war, every technological advancement, every... Wait. She paused as new information appeared. They have tactical assessments. The data was overwhelming. Battle analysis from human conflicts dating back to ancient times. Psychological profiles of human soldiers. Studies on human pain tolerance, adaptation rates, and learning curves in combat situations. But what made it truly terrifying was the tone of the analysis. The Keepers were afraid. Species shows unprecedented resilience under extreme duress. Will fight to extinction rather than surrender. Adapts rapidly to new threats. Uses environment and available resources with extreme efficiency. Demonstrates pack loyalty that extends beyond immediate genetic relations. Warning. This species does not recognize defeat as a concept. Lisa's hands shook as she continued reading. Entry after entry detailed humanity's capacity for warfare, but also their ability to survive and thrive under conditions that would destroy other species. The Keepers had documented human expansion across Earth, their mastery of fire, their development of increasingly sophisticated weapons, their tendency to turn any tool into an instrument of war. Final assessment, the translation continued. Humanity represents an existential threat to galactic stability. They do not seek conquest for resources or territory, but because conflict is their natural state, they improve through adversity, learn from defeat, and become stronger with each generation. Our models suggest that if this species ever achieves faster than light travel, they will spread across the galaxy like a virus, consuming and adapting until nothing can stop them. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the translation system. Lisa realized that humanity had already achieved faster than light travel. They were already spreading across nearby star systems, and if the Keepers were right about everything else, then the galaxy was about to face something it had never encountered before. The last message appeared, time-stamped just before the Keepers vanished from galactic history. We go now into the dark beyond the rim. Perhaps distance will save us from what is coming. To any who find this archive, the humans are coming. Prepare or perish. The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 ancient species gathered for an emergency session. The massive circular room stretched upward into a dome of crystalline material that filtered the light of 3 suns, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Ambassador Kyle Richardson sat in the newest chair, a simple, human-designed seat that looked crude compared to the elaborate crystalline formations and floating platforms used by the other species. Kyle had been humanity's representative for only 6 months, ever since first contact protocols had been established. He was a career diplomat, chosen for his calm demeanor and ability to navigate complex political situations. However, nothing in his training had prepared him for the hostility he faced in this chamber. High Chancellor Vex of the Zephyrian Empire dominated the center of the room, his 12-foot-tall insectoid form clicking and chittering as he communicated with his subordinates. The Zephyrians had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for over 8,000 years, their military might unquestionable. To his left, Councillor Thane of the Crystalline Collective pulsed with shifting colors, each hue representing different emotional states that Kyle was still learning to interpret. Dr. Amy Foster, humanity's chief cultural attaché, sat beside Kyle with a tablet full of the data they had received from the UES Discovery 3 days ago. She was a xenocultural specialist who had spent years studying alien societies, and she understood better than anyone how serious this situation was becoming. Chancellor Vex raised one of his forearms for silence, and the chamber fell quiet except for the subtle harmonics that several species used for communication. His translator converted his speech into the common galactic language, though Kyle could hear the clicking undertones that suggested irritation. "We are here because the newest members of our council have brought disturbing claims to our attention," Vex began, his compound eyes focusing on Kyle. "Ambassador Richardson, present your evidence." Kyle stood slowly, Knowing that every movement was being analyzed by beings whose ancestors had mastered interstellar politics before humans had discovered fire, he activated the holographic display system, and images from the Keeper archive filled the air above the council floor. Honored council members, 3 days ago our research vessel discovered an ancient archive belonging to a species known as the Keepers. This archive contains detailed observations of human civilization spanning thousands of years, along with warnings about our species that we believe you should consider seriously. The translated warnings appeared in the air, floating in the common script that all council species could read. Kyle watched as the various representatives absorbed the information, their reactions ranging from confusion to dismissal, to what appeared to be amusement. Counselor Thane's crystalline form shifted to a deep blue color that Kyle's cultural training identified as contempt. When Thane spoke, his voice resonated like wind chimes in a storm. The Keepers vanished from galactic society over 50,000 years ago. They were known for paranoia and excessive caution. Their warnings carried no weight then, and carry no weight now. Dr. Foster leaned forward in her chair. Honored counselor, the Keepers were also known for their accuracy in predicting species development and expansion patterns. Their archaeological records show detailed knowledge of human civilization that predates our spaceflight capability by millennia. Surely that suggests their observations have merit. A ripple of what Kyle recognized as laughter passed through the assembled representatives. Commander Kresh of the Zephyrian military forces clicked his mandibles in a pattern that the translator rendered as scornful amusement. Humans possess perhaps 50 functional starships, none larger than a destroyer-class vessel. Your population occupies 1 star system and 3 recently established colonies. You have been in space for less than 1 standard galactic cycle. Kresh's compound eyes fixed on Kyle with predatory intensity. The Keepers fled from shadows and died alone in the dark. Their fears have no relevance to current galactic affairs. Kyle felt his stomach tighten as he realized how the Council was interpreting humanity's request for consideration. To these ancient civilizations, humans appeared weak and primitive. The very act of presenting the warnings was being seen as a sign of human paranoia, rather than legitimate concern. Counselor Yilan of the Hegemony forces spoke next, her serpentine form coiling around her floating platform. Perhaps the humans seek to use these ancient texts to gain sympathy or special protection status. It would not be the first time a young species has attempted such manipulation. Amy Foster's tablet chimed softly as she received a priority message from Earth Command. Kyle could see her face pale as she read the contents, and she quickly passed the device to him. The message was brief and terrifying. Long-range sensors had detected massive fleet movements throughout the local galactic sector. Multiple species were mobilizing their military forces. Kyle cleared his throat, trying to maintain his diplomatic composure even as he realized the situation was spiraling out of control. Honored council members, we are not seeking special protection or attempting manipulation. We are simply sharing information that we believe has relevance to galactic stability and peace. High Chancellor Vex rose from his platform, his full height casting a shadow across the human delegation. Galactic peace has been maintained for 10,000 years through strength and order. Young species learn their place in the galactic community through proper guidance and, when necessary, correction. The words sent a chill through Kyle's body. The translation software was clear, but he hoped he was misunderstanding the implications. Correction, Your Excellency? Are you suggesting military action against humanity? Counselor Thane's crystalline form shifted to a harsh red color that Kyle's training identified as aggression mixed with anticipation. The Galactic Council has reviewed humanity's recent actions and statements. Your species has disturbed galactic peace by spreading ancient fears and unsubstantiated warnings. Your expansion into 3-star systems was conducted without proper consultation with established territorial authorities. Kyle realized with growing horror that the Council had already made their decision before this session began. The presentation of the Keeper archive had been used as justification for something they had already planned to do. Amy Foster stood beside him, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Honored Council, humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit through trade and cultural exchange. We have taken no aggressive actions against any galactic civilization. Commander Kresh clicked his mandibles in a pattern that suggested predatory satisfaction. The Zephyrian Empire has territorial claims in the sectors humanity has occupied. Your colonies represent unauthorized expansion into sovereign space. The Council votes to authorize disciplinary action to restore proper order. The vote was swift and unanimous among the non-human representatives. Kyle watched in stunned silence as species after species agreed to what was essentially a declaration of war against humanity. The reasoning was thin and obviously fabricated, but the intent was clear. As the council session ended, Kyle realized that the Keeper warnings had been more prophetic than anyone could have imagined. Humanity was indeed about to face a galactic conflict, but not as the aggressors the ancient archives had feared. They were about to become the targets of civilizations that saw them as weak, primitive, and ripe for conquest. The irony was bitter and terrifying. The warnings that spoke of human danger had convinced the galaxy that humanity was dangerous enough to destroy before they could become a real threat. Kyle could only hope that the Keepers had been wrong about humanity's capacity for violence, because if they were right about that too, the galaxy was about to learn why ancient warnings should never be ignored. The first alien ships appeared in human space without warning, their massive forms dropping out of hyperspace like metallic thunderclouds. Fleet Admiral Kresh commanded the Zephyrian assault force from his flagship, a dreadnought the size of a small city. His compound eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he surveyed the human colony of New Colorado through the tactical display. The mining world looked defenseless, with only a few orbital platforms and a handful of patrol ships guarding it. Commodore Yilan's hegemony fleet took position on the opposite side of the system, her serpentine form coiled around the command throne of her vessel. The plan was simple and had worked against dozens of primitive species over the centuries. Destroy the orbital defenses, demand surrender, and occupy the world with minimal resistance. Most young species capitulated immediately when faced with overwhelming force. Governor Pete Santos received the invasion alert in his office deep within New Colorado's primary mining complex. He was a former military engineer who had volunteered to help establish the colony 3 years ago. The moment he saw the alien fleet signatures on his screen, he activated the colony's emergency protocols and sent a message to every human on the planet. This is Governor Santos to all colonists. We are under attack by hostile alien forces. All military personnel report to defensive positions immediately. All civilians proceed to designated shelters. Remember your training, remember your duty, and remember that Earth is counting on us. The first bombardment began an hour later. Alien energy weapons lanced down from orbit, turning the colony's defensive satellites into expanding clouds of debris. The orbital mining platforms, hastily converted into weapons platforms, managed to damage 2 hegemony cruisers before being destroyed. But instead of the expected surrender transmission, the aliens received something else entirely. Every human mining facility on New Colorado began broadcasting the same message on all frequencies. Pete Santos appeared on screen, his face grim but determined. Behind him, colonists could be seen loading mining explosives and industrial equipment onto hover platforms. To the alien forces currently attacking our world, this is Governor Pete Santos of New Colorado Colony. We reject your demands for surrender. We will fight for every meter of our territory, for every building in our settlements, and for every tunnel in our mines. If you want this world, you will have to take it from our dead hands. Admiral Kresh clicked his mandibles in annoyance. Young species often made dramatic speeches before surrendering, but something about the human's tone suggested this might be different. He ordered the ground assault to begin, confident that a show of overwhelming force would break their resistance quickly. The Zephyrian dropships descended through New Colorado's atmosphere like falling stars, carrying elite shock troops that had conquered dozens of worlds. They expected to face frightened colonists armed with mining equipment and improvised weapons. Instead, they found themselves landing in a carefully prepared killing field. The humans had spent 3 years turning New Colorado into a fortress. Every mine shaft had been rigged with explosives. Every tunnel system had been converted into a defensive network. Every piece of industrial equipment had been weaponized. When the alien troops landed, they found themselves fighting not just soldiers, but an entire population that refused to yield. Mining charges designed to blast through solid rock proved devastatingly effective against alien armor. Industrial lasers meant for cutting ore sliced through Zephyrian carapaces like paper. The colonists used the planet's own geography against the invaders, collapsing tunnels to trap alien forces and flooding mining shafts to drown them in toxic slurry. Captain Maria Gonzalez commanded the orbital defense of Eden's Garden, humanity's primary agricultural colony. Her small fleet consisted of 3 destroyers and a converted cargo hauler, facing a crystalline collective armada of 30 warships. The aliens expected her to retreat or surrender immediately. Instead, she ordered her ships to attack. The battle was hopeless from the start, but Maria had no intention of winning through conventional means. As her destroyers were systematically destroyed by superior firepower, she piloted her flagship on a collision course with the enemy command vessel. The crystalline collective admiral watched in stunned disbelief as the human ship accelerated directly toward his dreadnought, its hull glowing with the heat of overloaded engines. The impact was spectacular, turning both ships into an expanding ball of superheated plasma, but Maria's sacrifice achieved more than just revenge. The destruction of the command ship threw the alien fleet into confusion, buying precious time for the colonists below to prepare their defenses. On Eden's Garden, the humans had learned from New Colorado's example. Every farming community became a stronghold. Agricultural equipment was converted into weapons of war. Crop dusters became improvised bombers. Grain silos were turned into missile launchers. When the alien ground forces landed, they found themselves fighting an enemy that used the very fertility of the world against them. The pattern repeated across every human colony, simultaneously attacked by the Galactic Council forces. The aliens had expected quick victories against primitive opponents, but instead found themselves locked in brutal grinding conflicts that consumed resources and personnel at an alarming rate. Fleet Admiral Kresh received casualty reports that made no sense. His forces had superior technology, overwhelming numbers, and thousands of years of military experience. Yet human resistance was not only continuing, it was intensifying. Every day of occupation cost more alien lives than the previous day. Worse, the humans seemed to be learning from each encounter, adapting their tactics and weapons with frightening speed. Commodore Yilan's situation reports painted an even grimmer picture. Her hegemony forces had successfully occupied the surface of 3 human worlds, but the colonists had retreated underground and continued fighting. They were using captured alien equipment against its creators, somehow managing to reverse engineer advanced technology with nothing but improvised workshops and sheer determination. The most disturbing reports came from the intelligence divisions. Human prisoners, when taken alive, showed no signs of demoralization or despair. Instead, they used every moment of captivity to study their captors, memorizing alien anatomy, technology, and tactics. Several escape attempts had succeeded not through luck or outside assistance, but because the humans had figured out how to disable alien security systems after only hours of observation. Admiral Kresh found himself remembering fragments of the ancient warnings that Ambassador Richardson had presented to the Council. The Keepers had spoken of a species that grew stronger through adversity, that learned from defeat, that refused to recognize the concept of surrender. He had dismissed those warnings as paranoid nonsense, but now he was beginning to understand their true meaning. The humans were not fighting like a primitive species facing extinction. They were fighting like predators that had been backed into a corner, and with each passing day they were becoming more dangerous rather than less. The galaxy's ancient civilizations had made a terrible mistake, and Admiral Kresh was beginning to suspect that the price for that mistake would be higher than anyone could have imagined. The combined alien armada that approached Earth was the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Over 3,000 warships from 12 different species converged on humanity's home system, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Admiral Kresh commanded the fleet from his massive flagship, confident that the sight of such overwhelming force would finally break human resistance. Admiral Susan Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the enemy fleet emerge from hyperspace like a metallic plague. Her home defense force consisted of 47 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels and outdated patrol craft. By any reasonable calculation, the battle was already over before it began. But Susan Parker had not become humanity's top military commander by following reasonable calculations. She opened a channel to every human ship in the system, her voice calm and steady, despite the impossible odds they faced. "This is Admiral Parker to all vessels of the home fleet. Today we stand between Earth and those who would destroy everything we hold dear. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and outclassed in every measurable way, but we are human, And that means we do not yield, we do not break, and we do not run. The alien fleet spread out in a classic encirclement formation, expecting the human ships to either flee or request terms for surrender. Instead, the entire human fleet accelerated directly toward the center of the alien formation, their engines pushed far beyond safe operational limits. Admiral Kresh watched in bewildered fascination as the primitive human vessels charged his massive fleet. Their tactics made no sense from any military perspective he understood. They were committing suicide for no strategic gain, yet something about their approach made his carapace itch with unease. The first human ship to reach the alien lines was a converted cargo hauler called the Memphis Belle. Its captain, a former merchant named Dave Wilson, had packed his vessel with every explosive device the crew could find. As Zephyrian fighters swarmed around his ship, Dave broadcast a message that would echo through galactic history. Tell them we were here. Tell them we stood against the dark. Tell them humanity does not surrender. The Memphis Belle detonated in the center of the Zephyrian formation, taking out a heavy cruiser and damaging 3 more vessels. But more importantly, the explosion created a gap in the alien battle line that Admiral Parker immediately exploited. The UES Defiance plunged through the opening, its weapons blazing at point-blank range against alien capital ships. Human destroyers followed in its wake, their crews singing ancient battle hymns as they engaged enemies 10 times their size. Every human vessel that died took alien ships with it, turning the space around Earth into a graveyard of twisted metal and expanding. Plasma Commodore Elon watched her hegemony dreadnought's shields fail under sustained human fire and wondered how primitive projectile weapons were penetrating her advanced defensive systems. The answer came when her science officer analyzed the human ammunition. The humans had somehow managed to tip their kinetic rounds with fragments of exotic matter salvaged from destroyed alien ships, turning each projectile into a miniature antimatter warhead. The Battle of Earth lasted 18 hours and became a legend that would be told in hushed whispers throughout the galaxy for millennia to come. When the last human warship finally succumbed to overwhelming firepower, over 400 alien vessels lay destroyed or crippled around them. Admiral Kresh stared at his casualty reports in stunned disbelief, unable to comprehend how such primitive opponents had inflicted such devastating losses on his superior forces. With the orbital defenses eliminated, the aliens expected Earth to surrender immediately. Instead, they received a planetary broadcast from President John Morgan, transmitted from a bunker deep beneath the ruins of Geneva. His message was brief and chilling. To the alien forces now occupying our orbital space, this is President John Morgan of the United Earth Government. You have destroyed our fleet and killed millions of our people. You now demand our surrender and expect our submission. Instead, I offer you this warning. You are about to learn why our ancestors crawled out of caves and conquered an entire world. You are about to discover what happens when you threaten the home of humanity. We are not just defending a planet, we are defending our children's future. And for that, we will fight until the last human heart stops beating. The invasion of Earth began 3 days later with orbital bombardment designed to break human morale. Instead of cowering in shelters, the human population used the bombardment as cover to move weapons and supplies into position. Every city became a fortress, every building a bunker, every street a killing field. The aliens found themselves fighting not just soldiers, but an entire civilization that had mobilized for total war. In the ruins of New York, 80-year-old retired teacher Nancy Adams led a group of schoolchildren in planting improvised explosive devices throughout the subway tunnels. When crystalline collective troops tried to use the underground passages to avoid human defensive positions, they found themselves trapped in a maze of death prepared by people they had dismissed as harmless civilians. In London, 12-year-old Bobby Chen used his knowledge of the city's sewer system to guide human forces in devastating ambush attacks against alien patrols. The boy had memorized every tunnel and passage during family urban exploration trips, and now that knowledge was being used to turn the aliens' own superior mobility against them. The most terrifying aspect of the human resistance was not their willingness to fight, but their ability to adapt and learn. Within days of the invasion beginning, human fighters were using captured alien energy weapons with deadly efficiency. They reverse-engineered alien communications equipment to intercept enemy transmissions and coordinate devastating counterattacks. Most disturbing of all, They began to understand alien physiology well enough to develop weapons specifically designed to exploit their enemies' biological weaknesses. Dr. Sarah Kim worked in a makeshift laboratory beneath the ruins of Chicago, dissecting alien corpses and developing targeted toxins. Her research team consisted of high school biology students and retired medical professionals, but their improvised chemical weapons were proving more effective than military-grade alien armor in stopping enemy advances. Fleet Admiral Kresh received increasingly desperate reports from his ground commanders. Human resistance was not weakening over time, it was intensifying. Every day of occupation brought new human innovations, new tactics, new weapons created from salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity. The species that the Galactic Council had dismissed as primitive was systematically dismantling the most advanced military force in galactic history using nothing but determination and a terrifying ability to learn from their enemies. As Earth burned around them, humanity was teaching the galaxy a lesson that would reshape interstellar civilization forever. Never underestimate a species that refuses to die. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong for the Galactic Council came from New Colorado, 6 months after the invasion began. Commander Rick Torres emerged from the deep mining tunnels with 2,000 human fighters, all of them armed with weapons that should not have existed. The crystalline collective occupation forces that had controlled the planet's surface suddenly found themselves facing energy rifles that could punch through their hardest armor and sonic grenades that shattered their crystalline matrix structures. Rick had been a mining engineer before the war, but 6 months of underground warfare had transformed him into something the galaxy had never seen before. He understood alien technology better than most alien engineers, having spent countless hours studying captured equipment and experimenting with modifications that no sane being would attempt. His fighters moved through the tunnels like ghosts, striking at alien positions and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The liberation of New Colorado took only 3 days, but the method of victory sent shockwaves throughout the galactic community. The humans had not simply driven out the occupying forces, they had systematically dismantled every piece of alien technology on the planet and rebuilt it to serve human purposes. Crystalline communication networks now carried human propaganda. Zephyrian power stations had been converted to charge human weapons. Even the alien ships in orbit had been turned against their former owners through computer viruses that the humans had somehow developed. Dr. Ben Clark worked in hidden laboratories on 17 different worlds, coordinating the most terrifying scientific project in galactic history. He was a biochemist who had specialized in alien physiology studies, but the war had turned his academic research into something far more deadly. His teams had developed targeted biological weapons designed to exploit the unique vulnerabilities of each alien species. The Zephyrian Empire discovered the effectiveness of Ben's work when their troops on Eden's Garden began dying of a mysterious plague that attacked their respiratory systems. The disease was specifically engineered to target Zephyrian biology, while leaving humans and other species completely unaffected. Within weeks, entire Zephyrian divisions were wiped out by an enemy they could not see or fight. The hegemony forces faced a different horror. Their neural communication networks, which had been their greatest advantage in coordinating large-scale operations, became their greatest weakness when human hackers developed viral programs that could crash their collective consciousness systems. Entire fleets found themselves blind and helpless as their crews fell into catatonic states. Captain Linda Hayes commanded the most audacious military operation in human history. Her mission was to capture an intact Galactic Council dreadnought, a task that every military expert considered impossible. But Linda had studied the alien command structures for months and discovered a weakness that their advanced civilization had never considered. The aliens had grown complacent after thousands of years of technological superiority. Their security systems were designed to prevent external attacks, but they had never imagined that an enemy might willingly board their vessels and fight hand-to-hand in the corridors. Linda's team of 300 volunteers used nothing but primitive weapons and human tactics to take control of a ship that carried enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Once she had control of the dreadnought's communication systems, Linda broadcast a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. The transmission included real casualty figures from the war, tactical analyses of human innovations, and a simple question that would haunt alien leaders for generations to come. You wanted to know what humanity was capable of. Linda's voice carried across 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed 60% of your invasion force. We have turned your own technology against you. We have developed weapons specifically designed to kill your people while leaving ours unharmed. And we are just getting started. The psychological impact of Linda's broadcast was devastating. Alien populations that had been told of easy victories and primitive opponents suddenly learned that their mighty military forces were being systematically destroyed by a species they had been taught to consider inferior. Panic spread through. The Galactic Council's member worlds as families realized their soldiers were not coming home. The final phase of humanity's counterattack began when Admiral Frank Wright emerged from the deep space beyond the galactic rim with humanity's true military force. His fleet of 200 warships represented decades of secret construction and preparation, incorporating technology reverse-engineered from the Keeper archives and enhanced with innovations developed during the war. The ships of Frank's fleet looked nothing like the crude vessels that had defended Earth months earlier. They were sleek predators built for one purpose: hunting alien warships with ruthless efficiency. Their hulls were covered in adaptive armor that could reconfigure itself to deflect any known weapon. Their weapon systems combined human ingenuity with alien technology to create instruments of destruction that the galaxy had never imagined. But the most terrifying aspect of Frank's fleet was not their advanced technology, it was the crews that operated them. These were humans who had been raised from childhood to understand alien psychology, alien tactics, and alien weaknesses. They thought like their enemies, but fought like humans. They were predators who had studied their prey for decades and were finally ready to hunt. The first engagement between Frank's fleet and a Galactic Council armada lasted less than 6 hours. When it was over, 47 alien ships had been destroyed or captured, while the humans had lost only 3 vessels. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that anticipated their every move, countered their every tactic, and seemed to know their technology better than they did themselves. High Chancellor Vex received the final casualty reports in his private chambers, his compound eyes struggling to process numbers that seemed impossible. Humanity had destroyed over 70% of the combined Galactic Council military forces. Entire species were facing extinction because they had underestimated a primitive world that refused to surrender. The ancient warnings of the Keepers echoed in his mind as he prepared the emergency evacuation of Nexus Prime. The long-dead species had tried to warn the galaxy about humanity's true nature, but their words had been dismissed as paranoid ravings. Now those warnings were proving to be prophetic truths written in the blood of 1,000 worlds. As alien fleets retreated in panic from human space, new entries were being added to the galactic archives. The most chilling was a simple statement that would define interstellar relations for millennia to come. Ancient warnings spoke of humans. We did not listen. Now it is too late for us all. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as servants or allies, but as the apex predators in a food chain that had been stable for 10,000 years. The galaxy would never be the same again.